Hi, welcome to Blooming Late. Coming to you today, only my second video, so you can probably tell, and I'm gonna try and get better and better with every video. Um, but today, I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's been very helpful to me since I turned 40. Remember, this channel is about tips and things and everything that will help you over 40, well into your beyond, all the way into 100. And I want to talk about life mottos. It's weird to say that. I mean, life mottos are just, they seem like, well, they can't help much. But in my life, they've helped tremendously. It's sort of like a compass. And a lot of people would say, like Christians, well, I have the Bible, that's my compass and all. And that's true. And there could be, for your life models, you could have, a few verses that would count. But there was a thing that happened to me several years back, right before I got sick, actually, where I was praying really hard, and I sort of didn't know what the direction of my life was going to take. I knew I wanted to go back to work when my son went back to school, and went to school, and but I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest. So I was like, it was kind of like starting over. I had gotten married, had a baby, and I was coming into that area where I was going to go back into the workforce, and I wanted it to count. So I was praying really hard about that, and I've always written and I always want to be a writer, but you can do that. And I know a lot of writers don't want to hear this, but you can do that anywhere, anytime. If you can't write while you're on a job, if you can't think about your writing at least and working on your writing, then you're not a writer. Sorry. But so writing is not something, it's part of who I am. It's not something I do purposely for money. So, what I was doing was praying, and one day I heard very clear, "What do you want?" And it was what's such an odd thing to hear, because I'm like, okay, does God say that? Does He say to you, "What do you want?" I mean, doesn't He tell you what you're supposed to want? I was raised pretty strict. You could probably tell. The more you get to know me, the more you'll see that my forgive the noise. That's my cat, Oscar. Anyway, but I was raised in a Baptist background, so yeah, I don't think I need to go on for most of you. So anyway, it was really refreshing and eye opening that God was saying, what do you want? What is it that that really makes a difference to you? And I'm gonna tell you, it he didn't just say it once. He said it for like 3 months. Every time I'd pray about it, what do you want? It was like so maddening, because it was like that was all he would say. He wouldn't you know, there was no other answers, no other comments from him, no other knowings, nothing, nothing. No special verses that popped out of the Bible, nothing. And it was like he was slowly peeling the onion back, the layers of the onion back. Because I kept saying, well, what do I want? And at first it was like, wow, which, who else wouldn't answer? I want to be rich. Okay, so yeah, so it starts out like that. But then the more the more that it's in your head, and that's what he would do. He would just put it back in my head. Every time I left my head, he'd say, "What do you want?" So, I had to think about it. I had to really think about it, because I had been, my whole life was about helping other people, and it still is, but it was more at the sacrifice of myself. I had, and I know that many women go through this, I had sacrificed many, many things for my marriage, and kids within the marriage that weren't mine, but I ended up raising them, and things like that, to where when it did come down to, hey, I'm going to start doing some stuff for myself, I had no idea what to do. When I went to college, it was for the purpose of, what was I best at? What did I test good at? It was never, what do you want? Never had that question before. And I was well into my 30s when that question popped from God. So that was hard. It was hard because you just, you're like, God, trust me enough to ask me, what do I want? That's wow. That's wow. And I'm going to tell you, it's not just me. What's weird is that since that time period, I have, I read and read and read. I read all the time. And since that time period, I have read, self-help book, Christian books, things like that. In fact, I just read a book yesterday, no joke, where he said that he had been praying and God asked him, what did he want? So I'm not special in the fact that God has to do this to people. It's this, and the man that had wrote the book, he also gave a lot of his life to people and had not ever thought about what he really wanted. And for a lot of us, that may seem simple. Oh, well, but it's not. I mean, people sometimes have to get a revelation, as they call it, for themselves. Like, what's the one? Love your neighbor as yourself. Simple, right? Everybody knows that one. Except for the fact that people don't really realize that in order to love your neighbor, that means you have to love yourself. That's sometimes people have to be told that by God. Um, so that's, you just never know. Some of the very fundamental things that should be fundamental aren't. So that was one of them. So that's always going to be one of my mottos. I had several. After that, after I started learning what I wanted in life, then the models started coming. And I wrote them down. What you want would be one. The second one is be true to you. Now, what it really comes from was Shakespeare. I think he wrote it in one of the books in King Henry VIII or fifth, or I forget which. I never really read Shakespeare, so but it was one of those. And he said, "To thine own self be true," and and he goes on. But everybody knows that again as well. Um, and then it was Julia Roberts' movie. She shortened it to in Pretty Woman, to be true to you. So it's easier to say. So I that's and it's true because you can't once you know what you want, you can't do what you want until you are true to you. Um, it just sort of follows because you can say, well, I want this and I want that, but you're not actually doing anything about it. So that has to follow. So that would be number two. Number three was one of the harder ones. That came again, it was a revelation, but it wasn't straight from God. It was as reading the Holy Bible, and it came as a result of reading Peter, really, and James. It talks about how, and that's kind of a be true to you kind of book, James. It's like, you have to know what's inside your soul. You have to know so that you don't have that come back on you. That you can make your own sin. You can create almost your own sin, because if you do something that's completely contrary to who you are, you truly are sinning against yourself. And that's when I started realizing, whoa, that can be heavy, because then your conscience can come back on you, and it can be something that's not what people think of as a sin, but for you, it's not true to you. You do it, you have guilt. It becomes like a sin for you. So it's all entangled. So it has to work like that. And that's the third one. It comes to no regrets. If you can think ahead and think to yourself, okay, the thing that I do, the thing that I say, um, if I am on the other side of it in time, and I look back onto having done that, having said that, will I regret it? If it's a yes, well then you don't do it. Um, so no regrets. What it means is don't do something that you know you'll regret. Sometimes people do things that they don't know they'll regret. That's the part. That's what plays into the whole thing of one and two. You can do stuff that is against your own self, that you think is even maybe good, and you regret it later. Yeah. So you have to come to a point where you have all three of these working in unison. And the fourth one, it's so simple, do what works. Um, there is things in the universe that God has put in that for each one of us that sometimes you can be thinking that this is the right thing to do and I'm supposed to do this and I really should do this and everything and it never works. It just keeps something keeps stopping. And sometimes yes, sometimes it's, you know, just bad luck and sometimes it's the devil, and you have to work that out. But most of the time, if you're doing if you're doing those first three, if you're doing what you want and being true to yourself and knowing that there's no regrets associated with it ever, then it becomes simple. Whatever you do works. And so if you got two things in line and one thing is really, really, really hard and you're going to have to be, just doing things that are just hard to do constantly, and I don't mean hard as far as having to work something out. I mean hard like emotionally difficult. It's just like going to drain you and all this stuff. But you're like at the end of this payoff, or this one, the other one, which is really simple and really easy to do. If you find that the payoff maybe not quite as much, more than likely it's still the simple one. And that payoff will lead to some other payoff or whatever, you know. God doesn't want us to do that. And there are times, yes, there are true things, and we know this now today more than people the last 50, 70 years, where, there are martyrs. There are Christians that are martyrs. There are Christians that have to go through things for the gospel, but when it's not about that, usually everything else is the simple way. Um, there's a verse in the Bible where Paul was doing sort of just that, and Jesus said to him, it was, why are you kicking against the pricks? And what he meant was, you're literally kicking against the thorns. You keep you're hurting yourself. You just keep hurting yourself. And that's the same thing. He was trying to say, it's easier than this. You're making it way too hard. You're complicating it way too much. So, um, you can apply a lot of these things to all kinds of different areas of your life. But, I don't want you taking mine, okay? I'm not saying you can, but I'm saying it would be not, you come up with your own because these are important to me. Some people, they have these down pat. They do these, this is automatic for them. But for some other people, they do need a little help and they might take one or two of these as their whole motto. But nonetheless, you need to peel back the onion. You need to peel the layers, and start. I would say you know, I don't say to adopt it forever, but start with what do you want, because God does trust you. Um, he does trust you. If you're questioning questioning, it's because you've got enough of Jesus in you to where you're questioning because you're a good person. You're questioning because you want to make the right decisions for yourself, for God, for everybody. So you wouldn't be questioning otherwise. Otherwise, you just go off and do it. That's the point. So because you're questioning, he trusts you. Um, there was something I came across today that sort of just fit everything into me. It's a quote by a man named Doug Firebaugh, and it says, I have it written down here. Um, every day, do something that will inch you closer to a better tomorrow. I found that profound. I really do, because that's the simple way. Think about it. And it's how everything really worth doing. Yes, that's work, but the part that's just inching you closer, that doesn't seem so much like work. It's just one thing, and you don't have to apply. I mean, you could say that for the whole every day, but it can be applied in different areas. Like, it just so I mean, things. It's amazing how things can fit together. I saw that verse, and then I was listening to a vlogger, and he was talking about he tries to be better. He wants to do well. He wants to look professional. You know, we all do. And of how he wasn't when he first started, which like this I'm sure is not going to be professional looking. But he made it a goal of himself for himself. Sorry, to make one thing on each video better than the last, whether it be editing or you know how he spoke or anything. And that's what made him. That's what makes him. He believes the vlogger he is today. Why he's semi-popular. He calls himself semi-popular, but that's what he. You know, so that can be applied to a lot of areas. It can't. It doesn't have to just be in a big old general way. You know, one thing today. What did I do? One thing today inch me closer to my goal. Um, but it could be, you know, what did I do today? What did I do in my video that when I before I published it to, you know, bring more professionalism every time. One thing. So we can do that in so many different areas, you know, of our work or our spiritual life, you know, even how we relate to our families. You know, maybe you haven't played with your kid as much as you wanted to. Well, stop thinking about it in a general, you know, I never play with my child. Oh my goodness. You know, just say today, we're gonna play, you know, a round of Uno, one round, you know, one game of Uno, you know, and then the next day find something else, you know, and if it's everything can be applied that way, it'd be amazing how much we could do. Because I mean, we do that with learning music or reading, or we sort of, but somewhere along the line, we've sort of forgotten how to learn. We, especially as adults, we want to get it all done right now. You know, I want to learn a new language, okay? And I grew up in a place that I should have, well, I was basically immersed in a language, and I never learned it. I learned some words, a lot of cuss words, of course, um, but I never learned the language, and that's, you know, and even though I was practically immersed in it where I lived, it's still um, because you want to know it all at once, and instead of taking one thing every day. If I had just done that 10 years ago, I could speak that language today. Think about it. You know, if I had just learned one word, made it, and learned it right, you know, once I learned a lot of words, learned, you know, how to put them in the correct sentences, you know, just, you know, if I had just done that, but no, you know, you don't want to take the time. But one thing that has always also helped me, I guess you could call this a motto, even though I've never considered it that way because it's always been in the background of my mind and I don't know why. You're gonna get there anyway. Okay, if you don't die tomorrow, you're going to live another day, another year, another 5 years, another 10 years, another 20 years. So if you do live, which, you know, hopefully all of us will, you're going to be there anyway. So what do you want to do between now and then? See, what do you want to make? How do you want to be different 5 years from now? And when you look back and say, you know, if I started this 5 years ago, I would be doing blank. I would be this. If I started vlogging when it became popular, I would be rich today. Think about it. I was there. We were all there, you know, when it started, but I didn't do it. You know, and you look, oh, those YouTubers, they're making a lot of money, or all those vloggers, they're making a lot of money, or those bloggers are making. If I blogged, I'm a writer. If I had really gotten in, I had a blog, and I just you know, I lost interest. But if I had really just did it every day, just applied this principle, never gave it up, well, I'd probably be rich from that too. So I think we can look back, you know, and see a lot of areas that we could have done. But that's what the point is of blooming late. We can bloom now too. And we will, you know, be here, God's will, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And do we want to look back then, you know, all those different time periods and go, if I just started that a year ago, you know, if I just started that 5 years ago, and, you know, just be like, oh, you know, that's the thing. So that's the wonderful part of growing older. We can look back and say, you know, I do know I could have done this in 5 years. So now I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to decide to do something, and I will do it every day, you know, and I think that's a big step for a lot of people. You know, the fact that it can be small steps that get you there. But just remember, you're going to be here anyway. You know, so if you want to learn all at this moment, you know, you won't ever do it, first off. And if you're here 5 years from now, you're going to look back and go, wow, if I just done that, if I just done one thing a day, now I would know it all. I would have that language down. I would know how to play guitar. You know, I would know how to play the piano. I would be painting. I would have paintings already. You know, all kinds of things. There's, you know, whatever it is you desire to do. So, I just wanted to, hopefully I'm inspiring you. I know I'm real serious. I'm going to try to be not so serious. I'm trying really hard to give some, you know, things that help my life, tips and things to help people move forward from 40 on and discover themselves. That's the main thing. Discover that, you know, there can be a good life after 40. There can be really anything, you know, anything after 40, after 50, even after 60. It's not over. And we live in a society that still makes us believe that it kind of is. You know, I think we're getting better. Definitely, you know, for actresses and things and actors, they're pushing the envelope. We keep trying to plug out, you know, say, hey, how come this part has to be a 20 something? You know, why can't it be a 40 something? You know, and then the directors are over, they'll think, oh, it's true, you know, and so that's, you know, they push it, and that's good. That's good for all of us because we need to see more of the, you know, I can't say older. I don't middle age maybe. I don't know, call 40 middle age. I don't, you know, I don't know what you call that. But you know, like Julia Roberts, and you know, I don't think hardly anybody thinks of her as old unless you're 14. You know, but yet she would be considered washed up. You know, 30 years ago, too old, done. You know, and these are the actresses that are pushing that envelope, that are, you know, getting more and more. You know, and the early ones, Jessica Tandy, and you know, B. Arthur, and you know, a lot of those ladies. You know, they definitely had to force their way through things, and they got it. They got it, and that's just one area. You know, we can do this in all areas. So hopefully this inspired you. I hope so, because this has been inspiring for me. These tips that I'm telling you have really inspired me, and I appreciate you tuning in. I hope I'm not too boring. I swear I'm gonna try to be less boring. Whatever it is that I need to do, I will try to do to make it better for you content wise. So, um, you know, please subscribe to me, and you know, give me tips that you have, that you know, that I can, you know, tell others about, and things that you want to take, you know, want me to do, look for tips and things that you want me to, questions that you want me to answer, or anything like that down there in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. Soon I will be talking about some giveaways, and I'm not doing that for subscriptions or anything. I want to let you know that there's a thing inside of me where I love to give things away. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you where that came from, but I love it. I absolutely love it. So hopefully, you know, you're gonna learn that, you know, it's gonna happen quite often. And it's not big things, you know. I don't have much money right now, especially, and you know, but it's still it's just fun. I just think it's really fun. It's fun to get something in the mail. It's fun to say I won that, you know, and so you know, I just it's weird, but that's true. So if there's anything that you guys you know, think of that I could offer as a free, you know, as a giveaway type of thing, you know, like I said, small things, you know, but I'm not really good at this, but I really want to make that part of this channel. I really do. So again, uh, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being, you know, my buddies on this channel. Okay, and have a good evening.